It's fabulous. I hope you don't mind this being recorded. Obviously, it will only show me, it won't show you in there. This will be made available via YouTube channel afterwards for anybody who wants to play catch up because, as Ant said, there's so much to go through. I was just saying earlier on the call that in preparation for this, what happens is I take a brief from Ant on the topic about what are we going to cover with AI in this particular session. I normally get a lead time of around 3 months, 2 months. And then I start building my slide deck, and I had over 120 slides for this, and I've been trimming it down over the last few days to make it a little bit more manageable. But you can see what we're going to cover. We're going to look at corporate news, what's going on in the corporate world of artificial intelligence. We're going to look at some impact reports. I'm going to encourage you to challenge yourselves on the ethical use of artificial intelligence. And we're going to look at how AI is actually being used by government in different countries, but most especially in the UK. I'm going to introduce some really interesting tools along the way, things that I think you may not have seen yet. Some are quite experimental, some are very obvious, some old favorites. If you've been on my workshops before, you might recognize some of these tools. I just, if they're that good, I keep using them until I find a better tool. I think currently we're at 158 tools, Ant, is what we've shown over the course of the last 19 months of presenting AI in Enterprise Oxfordshire's domain. So lots to go at. I'm going to do lots and lots. So let's kick off with corporate AI. You'll see lots of images that are on here. Wherever it's reasonably practicable, I've used a, different AI tool to do this. This one was using using Gemini to do that. Varying degrees of success with that, and where I can, I will tell you what tool I've used to actually create that. So the first bit of news, and this regards Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI. Interesting. He just actually published a great white paper, and it came out on the 19th of last month. We must build AI for people, not to be a person. So there's this big challenging thing going on at the minute, which is AI conscious? You know, are we at a point where we've got artificial general intelligence, which is as good as the best of us at anything? And are we moving to super intelligence where it has its own existential sense of purpose and identity? And with that, what are the implications? So heavy. We start in heavy and we get lighter. But it's a fascinating read. And I've highlighted this little quote from it when he talks about the psychosis risk. My central worry is that many people will start to believe in the illusion of AIs as conscious entities so strongly that they'll soon advocate for AI rights, model welfare, and even AI citizenship. I mean, let that sink in, that you are suddenly in a courtroom environment where there is a lawyer who is defending the rights of an artificial intelligence bot. That could be the world that we move towards in the future. There's stages before that, but why I've shared this is I actually think Mustafa Suleyman is one of the great legends of AI in terms of those frontier labs. He's got a fantastic track record and he's solid, he's grounded, he's a grounded person. Just have a little listen to the beginning of this YouTube video.
Like, it's like they're the most important questions.
Yeah.
Like, why are we here? Why are we, this biological species, suddenly giving rise to this new information-based species, this new digital species, and what are going to be the consequences for how we live? I think that's the most interesting question. I can't help but think about that 24/7. I think that's like the question of our age.
Do you think that we could create computers that are conscious?
That is such a deep question. I think people often dismiss that question by saying we don't know what consciousness is ourselves. And I think that's a philosophical get out. I think we do.
So fascinating. I mean, that is a 55-minute YouTube film. You'll get these slides and you'll get all the links in there. And he goes on to talk about this whole concept of AI psychosis, which is this growing phenomenon that you may have seen in the news. And that is the concerns that people have about how chatbots are influencing and affecting people's state of mind because they become so entirely consumed by the relationship that they build on, which is, to all intents and purposes, just a straightforward Q&A, but in doing that, when you can indulge yourself for days on end and it's at your fingertips, i.e., it's on a mobile phone, no matter where you are, you continue that conversation, and it does positive, kind of reaffirmment of your particular belief system, then that creates a positive feedback loop, and the output of that isn't always positive. So Futurism wrote this really interesting article about this very topic. Again, we've got the link here. And it picks out some of these things of like these memes, these emergent topics that people are experiencing where they think they're talking to a sentient AI tool, that this AI tool has kind of led them down a path through exploration, that the person thinks that they are the chosen one. They've been encouraged to consider alternative forms of medication, or they've gone into a deep dive on the medication that they're on and come to the conclusion that they shouldn't be using it, that they're trapped in this world of conspiracy theories, and there's just an awful lot going on there. And actually, I've got lived experience of this in as much as I've got a friend who's actually gone through a whole challenging period of this bit, the new kind of science bit, where went down this long rabbit hole of doing research on a particular topic, and then realized at some point, so hold on a minute, I've got lost in amongst this massive long thread where now actually I don't really believe in the research it's actually presenting to me. So this kind of stuff does happen, and actually when you're in that spiral, you're not even aware that it's actually happening. And when all of this stuff, this AI psychosis news came out, there was quite a lot of rigorous response to it, in particular from OpenAI. OpenAI themselves had to write a blog article about it, talking about how they can help people when they need it most. And this is OpenAI, so this is the frontier lab that developed ChatGPT. But in amongst this blog that they wrote, they accidentally revealed some very interesting stuff, which is if they feel that the chat has some content in it, then they are obliged to share the user location and send the chat information through via their swatter team through to government agencies, and that includes the police service as well as the other security services. Now, in principle, you think, well, actually, that's a sensible thing. However, it can be misused, that thing, because it's human. This is humans in the loop. And what we've got here is we've got a human talking to a chatbot. The chatbot alerts another human that there is some content that's being there's some content that's being generated that needs to be looked at. Then it becomes the perception of that human to decide what to do with that information, to ignore it, to delete it, to pause the chat, or to actually flag it and send it through to services. And the other aspect to it, once this became really apparent that this is what OpenAI were doing, was that lots of legal professionals were saying, whoa, whoa, hold on a minute. When I'm doing discovery, I'm using ChatGPT. I'm putting lots of sensitive documents in there. Are you sending that through to the police, to the police force, or to the judicial system? Where does client confidentiality fit into all of this? So it actually opened up a kind of, for the best of intentions, I understand why they wanted to say this to reassure people, but in actual fact, by doing that, they've alarmed another whole group of people. What I think really the takeaway from this ought to be for all of us, that you need to be really careful about what you put into AI tools, even when you've got the pro licenses. Claude, made by Anthropic, will stop a chat if it feels offended. Google, by default, their Gemini tool, when you open up the chat box, the very first thing it does is it tells you that there is a human in the loop and that this may get escalated. OpenAI, by contrast, haven't until this point, but assume that actually your information is in some way available to others. And of course, the other part of that is that the NSA in America, National Security Agency, has compelled OpenAI and all of the frontier labs working in the US to, even when you delete content, it's never deleted and they can access it. So there's a whole challenge here as to when is my data my data. If I delete my data, is it really deleted? Who can use my data? Who's going to escalate it? What's their bias? That's kind of where we need to be in our thinking on all of this thing. But as I say, it kind of was done with the best of intentions, just to slow down this spiraling challenge of people using chatbots and becoming emotionally attached to them. You know, and AI is booming. Look at the stats on this. This is the growth of weekly use of ChatGPT. I mean, this it's not an exponential, kind of spike, but look, these numbers are growing and growing and growing. And they had, they released GPT-5, the latest version of ChatGPT, in their range just a few weeks ago, and people complained saying, "Oh, it's lost its personality." Part of that was this whole thing about AI psychosis, that they had to be seen to be responding to it, because only a month earlier Sam Altman had said, "Oh yeah, no, it could become your kind of your best friend, and you can seek counsel in it, that kind of thing. And who knows, maybe one day it will be used for professional counseling." Had to completely row back on that with the AI psychosis challenge, and then trim its ability to be able to do that. So it's less personable as it once was. They also, for the environmental aspects of it, rerouted queries through to models that actually use less energy. Like, why do you want like deep learning if all you want to do is find a list of X, Y, and Z? So, again, what they're trying to do is appease some of the great concerns that are out there about the use of artificial intelligence, and that is it's not good for humans and it's not good for the planet. I get it. And we'll look a little bit later on some research that I've done and that will be accessible to you for you to form your own opinion. We'll look at red pill and blue pill research on ethics and the opportunities that AI actually present to us. And really, this contrast that exists is very much in my mind. I allow them both to coexist. So I am a fanboy of AI, but I'm also really, really cautious, and I hope this comes through in the content today. If you've been on in my workshops before, you'll have seen the pattern, which is I offer opinions on both sides of this, because I think we should have a fair representation of the information. So whilst all that AI psychosis exploded, lots of mainstream media were saying we're in a bubble. This is all going to end. We're all going to run away from AI, and it can't possibly carry on as it is. And that is the case, that we're in this Punch and Judy, where on one side there are people saying AI is amazing, and on the other side people are saying, "Oh, we're going to all lose our jobs." I think we're going to be somewhere in the middle of all of that sort of stuff, and that's the case that I'm going to build. But I want you to have access to lots of the research that I've done on that very topic. So, Jed Tarifi is definitely, his glass is half empty when it comes to artificial intelligence, despite being one of the originals working for Google DeepMind when they were developing their AIs. So what he's actually said, he was talking about PhDs really, is like what the most challenged group of people are the 18 to 25-year-olds with in terms of impact of AI, because they're the ones that are going through university now doing degrees that in actual fact by the time they've graduated, maybe the opportunities won't be there because artificial intelligence has basically eaten their lunch and got there before them. So it is a challenging environment for young people to go through. And what he was saying is now, with the world advancing as fast as it is, we should look outside the school. If you're unsure, and he's talking about a career path or potentially a degree, you should definitely default to no and focus on just living in the world. You'll move much faster and you'll learn a lot more, and you'll be more adaptive on how things are going to change. Yes, I guess that, but we still need PhDs. We can't all just, kind of do one and live our best life and, go around the world for a bit and find ourselves and then come back and hopefully we'll all find a job. We actually need smart people. And in actual fact, if we haven't got smart people generating new original thought, then what's our language models going to be using? How are they going to continue to grow and develop if there's no more original thought from our PhD? So, Jad Tarifi, I get what you're saying. I don't know. Sometimes he works, his organization, you can see there's a link there, Integral AI. You will find there's quite a common theme where some of the leaders in AI do like, if they're involved in frontier development of language models and applications, they do like to put out these statements because it attracts interest. And by attracting interest, by putting these scary, ideas out there, then it pumps their brand, it attracts interest, and I don't know, maybe there's a little bit in there, but let's see. I want to carry on this thing about education, though. He's saying for the majority of you, consider not doing a PhD. There is obviously for some of us who have done all of that and we've been in our working life, then maybe we might want to consider skilling up at a later point. That's what I did. I mean, I didn't even go to uni until I was 40. I was a printer, living my best life in London, and did an apprenticeship, didn't do any degree, and at 40, I then finally went back to university, did that, didn't do anything, and more recently, gone back to education. This report from LinkedIn is talking about how AI is changing the workplace, and it's using the stats that people are publishing on LinkedIn about themselves, and there's some interesting stuff. People today are likely to have twice as many jobs as those 15 years ago. So again, we're back to that place of job hopping. There is no sense of permanency. People finding them failing forward, failing fast, moving on. As we speed up, there isn't that same level of permanence that there once was. Look at this. By 2030, 70% of the skills used in most jobs will have changed, and AI will be one of those catalysts for it. 70% of jobs by 2030. I mean, to be honest, for me, I'm not worried about 2030. I definitely won't be working in 2030. Oh no, I might be. It's only 5 years away. 2030 is literally just around the corner. I'm going to explain at the end of our session today how I'm dealing with this particular one. But look at this one. Since 2022, the rate at which people are putting new skills onto their profile, look, it's like literally 140% increase. It's a hockey stick. So we'll delve deeper a little bit into this stat, but more in particular to AI courses. So look at this. There's been a 169% increase in people registering completion of non-technical professional accreditations. So signing up for AI courses, I've done it. I've probably done 9. There's loads of really good courses out there that actually, if you want to get a grounding in the concept and then do a deep dive, whether it's, whatever it might be, agentic AI, whether it's, processing of data, or if you want a superficial leadership training, it's all available for you. You can do all of this sort of stuff. But this is, if we look at the professions, look at this. So what this is looking at is since 2018, has there been an increase by profession in the registering of AI skills? Yes, there has. Overall, there's been a significant increase in it. Look, naturally, you would expect marketing specialists to be quite high. I found this one quite interesting. Graphic designers, it's this one here. If we look at this chart here, ChatGPT was released. It's this orange line. If I can zoom in a little bit. And the reason why I'm fascinated by this is that I used to be a designer. So let's look at this. This is GPT when it was released. Yeah, let's look at this line. Look what's actually happening here. Suddenly GPT's released, and then bang, 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 wham, 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 straight away. Graphic designer going, whoa, whoa, hold on a minute. That's coming for me, and it has come for them. But that's nothing new. This is quite interesting. The registered nurses actually are starting to put a little bit on there, but I'm going to talk about the NHS shortly. But you can see which industries or which kind of professions are being most impacted by that. Question is, are you going to be impacted by it? Yeah, and you're right. There is a lot of scaremongering about AI. I've just had a look at the chat very briefly. There was a report that was released by MIT on the state of AI in business in 2025, and this came out, and this caused a whole firestorm because people were saying, "Well, hold on a minute. It's a very small sample of the population. It only covers 6 months. There was only 52 organisations sampled, of which there were 153 people within those 52 organisations, and it was really only in relation to 300 publicly disclosed initiatives. So, don't know whether that's enough of a decent sample for it to be statistically relevant. But anyway, all that being said, there were some interesting things that did come out of it. This being one of them. And this basically shows what parts of an organization that were sampled were using artificial intelligence and what type of AI were they using it. And obviously, sales and marketing would be one of the lead ones to do that. And finance and procurement would be the ones who would use it least, because that's exactly how it is in the real world. You would know if you've got colleagues, if you work for an organization, that the people who are working in finance and procurement tend to be risk averse, and those who work in sales and marketing are absolutely shooting for the stars. So you have, and that in itself is quite evident in the uptake in terms of how it was used, what type of things it was used. You look at the sales and marketing, this one. So using AI generated outbound emails. Gosh, if I had £1 for every time I've been on a training course where somebody said, "Yeah, you've got to work your list, you've got to get sales funnels sorted, you've got to do outreach," all of that sort of thing. Yes, and now there are loads of AI tools that can build your sales funnel, do the sentiment, understand the implications of that, rewrite, reinvent, regenerate, resubmit, all of that. So it's now becoming AI augmented by artificial intelligence, all of these sales funnels. So that's kind of logical that that would happen. I think this is coming, all of this. I use Sage for my accounts, and Sage has AI built into it, but it's rubbish, if I'm honest. It doesn't do anything. It just gives me a few useless tips. And I was talking to a couple of business people the other day, and we were just talking about year end, like doing your finances at year end. And I was saying, you know what's missing? What we really want is an accounts package that's connected to our business bank accounts and to all of our subscriptions and to HMRC, so that in actual fact we can literally do the whole thing in one platform. So it does all the reconciliations, it does all the submissions to Companies House, payroll, does all your VAT, does all of that, keeps you compliant, it does your year end, it does all of that in one subscription. So that for little people like us running businesses, we have the peace of mind that we are compliant in our fiduciary responsibilities, and we have a good live view of what's going on in our business model. That's the holy grail, but of course that will be hugely disruptive to the accountancy trade. And my sincere apologies for if there is an accountant on this call, and I've just tried to put you out of work. That's not the intention. But I can see that there are some great use cases for it, but it's going to be one of the kind of the laggards, if you like. It's going to be one of the last ones that's likely to be using AI wholly in that. So there's another one. This stat looks at the difference between using generative AI, which is the kind of stuff we're used to using, and using embedded agentic AI. So this is getting it to complete a whole series of tasks. So rather than it being a human in the loop that's using it, that's augmenting and understanding how they can generate insight from data and applying it, this is more, let's just create a series of tasks, let's embed an agent into our systems who will actually be able to work with it. And this is what's happened. That's what these two stack charts are showing. 80% of businesses investigated you just using general purpose large language models versus only 60% looking at embedded agentic AI. And you can see what actually happened. By the time you got to it, they've investigated it, they tried it, and they're still using it, i.e. was successfully implemented. 40% of businesses are still using the LLMs, the generative AI, rather than those that are you that in comparison to those that tried and just decided it wasn't for them. And again, this kind of brings us back to that same place of what's your risk appetite for that? This was a quote that came from this report. As one CIO put it, we've seen dozens of demos this year. Maybe one or two are genuinely useful. The rest are wrappers or science projects. And yeah, that's it. So what he means by wrappers is that it's a very beautiful interface that's actually just got a language model sitting behind it. It's using an API to go into Gemini or ChatGPT. And there are concerns over the robustness of it and the reliability of it and the consistency of output and the sensitivity and ownership and the sovereignty of company data, all of that type of stuff, like, which naturally your risk averse CIO would be, and that person ought to be championing risk aversion and say, whoa, 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 stop. I've got to be that person that says, be careful when when all of their colleagues are actually saying, come on, we need to do this, we need to do this. So the impact of this, which is we want to do it, one group of people, and then the risk averse side say, yeah, but we've got to just like make sure this works for our enterprise stack. We can't just like literally let the bots run amok in our systems. Whoa, 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 let's just slow down. Those two competing, contrasting views in one organization leads to this: the shadow AI economy, which is basically Companies who've purchased LLM subscriptions, 40%. By comparison, employees using LLMs, 90%. So what is that telling us? It's telling us there's a whole load of people with their mobile phones under the desk using ChatGPT and not telling the boss, which is absolutely fine. And that totally makes sense. Getting a subscription to Gen I is easy. If you don't tell the boss, you get away with it. You don't want to go through this whole cycle of trying to encourage enterprise to get involved and validate whether this piece of software is actually going to be risk free. It's no, let's just use ChatGPT and just don't tell the boss about it. It is a real problem. I think it's one that they're still trying to overcome. There's lots of great solutions to it. Microsoft trying to come up with their solutions. There are loads of great enterprise solutions to it, but they come with a hefty price tag. And for smaller businesses, they can't afford it. And for larger businesses, we're only a year in, and I think that's a real issue with Gen AI. We've been at it 2.5 years with the agentic AI and using task bots. We're nowhere near that. So I think there's this aversion to want to do it just yet. Hasn't reached a level of maturity and trust right now. So, talking of trust, Google released their environmental report, and you'll be interested in this. This is the latest environmental report from Google, and what they were trying to do is dispel some of the challenges, or at least open up the reality of talking about how can we create clean energy to run our data centers. How can we ensure that 100% of the water that we're using is repurposed? How do we ensure that we're not polluting the environment around our data centers and our energy generation systems? All of that kind of stuff. Because you will have seen on previous workshops that I've done, data centers are greedy. They love energy, they love water, they love land. They're not bothered about people. So with all of that is the great challenge, and people are pushing back against it. And you'll have heard lots of people say, like, "Oh, every time you use ChatGPT, it's a liter of water. It's 75 hamburgers worth of, energy consumption every time you generate in them." All of that. A lot of that is actually true. Now, what Google tried to do with this is do some interesting calculations. So, oh yeah, yeah, no, it's only a drop of water. Do a quick question in Gemini, like ask it one thing. It's like a droplet of water. And other people have challenged them and I say, well, hold on a minute. I'm not sure about the science on that. We've looked at the numbers you're calculating. You've missed a massive bit out of these calculations. So there is this greenwashing that tends to happen as, this is no different in this industry as it is in any other industry, and that is statistics. Statistics can literally say anything. So depending on how you sample it, that will have an impact on what the outcome is and then people's perceptions of it. But there is this perception war going on right now between people, between those the businesses that will profit from this and environmentally conscious or socially aware people who are thinking, should I? Should I be using it for everything? And the too long didn't read of this whole thing in my philosophy when I work with individual businesses and work with organizations on, where is the ethical point, where is the line drawn on the use of artificial intelligence. I just say, apply the principle that if you don't really need to use it, don't use it. Nobody needs to see tons and tons of memes. I'm going to talk about AI slop in a minute, and that is my big bugbear is AI slop. And don't create AI. Don't be that group of people that create AI slop. The world doesn't need it. And all you're doing is actually creating this negative feedback loop by using AI to create more slop, and then having the AI tool sample that slop. You're not helping at all. It's not going to improve the quality of the data. Let's put it that way. But moving on from this ethical point of view, or the positioning that they've done in terms of the environmental impact on AI, there's still a lot of businesses out there that are really pushing for this, and they can allow it. I'm going to show Annette. I'm going to show you what AI slop is in a minute. So stand by your beds on that one. But before that, I just want to show you how businesses are compelling their employees to get involved with artificial intelligence. So here's Shoesmiths. So this is a law firm, and they created a £1 million pot to encourage people to start using AI. And their calculation was, we just want every colleague to do 4 Copilot posts a day, and because actually it would be good if everybody becomes familiarized with Microsoft Copilot, which uses GPT-5 and various other language models in the back end as well as its own. But this is, I've highlighted this, which is really quite interesting. Usage will be tracked and shared transparently across the firm. Gosh, that sounds like it's a bit of a shaming process. Sounds like they're going to create a league table with like, Grey Laws, you're only you're in the bottom quotient. You're at the bottom 1%. You better up your game. That kind of thing. I think that's what they're trying to do with that. And is that right? I kind of get the stick and carrot. I like the idea that if we can get a million useful prompts created, then we'll unlock the £1 million pot. I get that. But shaming people, showing it across the business, oh no, that's just me. I don't know. What do you think? Put it in the chat. I'd be interested to know how you feel about that. Let's look at this. He looks like a Bond villain. He's not a Bond villain. He's actually the CEO of Coinbase, which is a trading platform for cryptocurrencies and exotic assets. And he has been talking about how he's been encouraging people, his engineers, to use AI. So it comes as no surprise that being the Bond villain that he looks like, and I'm being very judgmental here, and I'm sincerely sorry, Brian, because actually he's a really nice person. But on this one, he said that anybody who refused to try out the tools, these generative AI tools, yeah, were promptly fired. So it's just like he gave them an opportunity. He said, use the tools. They said, I don't want to use the tools. Use the tools. I don't want to use the tools. You need to use the tools. Don't use the tools. Okay, you're fired. Simple as that. So what do we think? Is that good or is that bad? I'm going to show you shortly how other large organizations are dealing with this, which is some programmers want to use it, others don't want to use it. But before I show you about programmers, let's just look at this big world of consultancy in the tech industry. The leader, arguably, or one of the leaders, Microsoft, they've made it mandatory for employees to use AI. So they're saying, actually, it's no longer optional. Okay. And managers are now instructed to include an employee's use of internal AI tools, as listed, when holistically evaluating their performance and impact. So you can either keep your job, or if you don't use our tools, if you can't demonstrate active use of our tools, then maybe you're not a team player. Maybe you're not right for Microsoft. And why would they be thinking that? Why would they be doing that? Well, it's simple, because they have an AI first strategy and they've not held back on that, and they've been brutally honest about that. Not the only company. I'm going to show you Salesforce in a minute. They're the same. But this AI first strategy for Microsoft, this is how it literally played out in real time over the space of about 2.5 months. So there we go, June the 27th. That memo that I've highlighted some of the, in yellow, some of the bits out saying AI's, that memo went out right across the company to literally everybody, and it was leaked. It was leaked to the press, and then the press had a fit, as they do. But shortly thereafter, Microsoft then made 9,000 people redundant. Okay, so they cleared out. I think it was about 6% of their workforce. See you later. It's not the first time they've done that. They did it in January as well. They cleared a lot of people out. So AI is mandatory. Then they make 9,000 redundancies. Then at the end of the month, Satya Nadella put a memo out saying, "Oh, it was a real heavy heart. We had to make 9,000 redundancies. I feel really bad about it. Gosh, people are really, really important to us." And then a couple of days later, or in fact, a month later, they recorded their biggest ever investment in AI infrastructure. So that is data centers, energy production, systems, SysOps, basically. This is a direction of travel for those large organizations. Now, that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to play out elsewhere. But what are those 9,000 people? Where are those 9,000 people going to go? Some of them actually very quickly find jobs. But that's 9,000 people now who are unlocked, available, and even if they're not coming for your jobs, they're on the market. They could be really useful people for your business to look at. So there is a positive side to that, and I am trying to dress up the fact that, and it's not good redundancies. I've gone through it myself. It's a dreadful experience. I've gone through it too many times, and there's a great tracking tool that looks at all of the job displacement as a result of government policy and also tech companies' strategies. That's well worth looking up. I'll put a link in the chat during the break. So Salesforce, I mentioned them earlier. He's basically saying, so the CEO of Salesforce is saying that 30 to 50% of all the work is being done by AI, and actually has an accuracy of 93%. So basically, the 7% inaccuracy still needs human beings to check all of that. It still needs a human in the loop, but you can see that's a big old lump of developer time that's being done. They actually just went on he's literally yesterday went on record saying we will never ever get rid of human developers, but there will be a lot less human developers in proportion to, the use of agentic tools to assist in the process of generating that code. Which feeds us neatly onto this. Back in the day, there was this thing, oh gosh, it's going back a fair few years, which was learn to code. When they were shutting coal mines down and heavy industry in North America, there was this whole American movement of learn to code, encouraging people to go out and get involved in computer programming and learn it, which great idea. But obviously, fast forward 2 decades, and this is what's now happening. Meta are trying to develop a system that will basically get rid of all mid-level engineers. Google are already at 30% of new code being written by bots, 20 to 30% of new code from Microsoft. Anthropic, this is their belief that they could have 100% of it. And I'm not surprised they're saying that, because actually their tool, Claude, is arguably, experts in this meeting may offer an alternative opinion, but Anthropic have Claude, and Claude is often cited as being the best generative tool for code. So I'm not surprised that Anthropic is saying 100% of code could be written by AI next year, because that's a little bit of a puff piece for Claude, their own language model, and Coinbase, who we mentioned earlier, the Bond villain. They're doing 33% of the code is written by AI, and they've got a target by the end of this year that 50% of all of their code will be written by AI. It's challenging because it creates this agility disengagement cycle. So when you start leaning into tools to do things for you, think of the calculator. Yes, Karen, you're getting the slides for this. So, and Nick, thank you for adding to that. Claude Code is 80% written by AI. Thank you for that stat. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all this. I can't respond to all of this, but that's really good that you're sharing some of this stuff. And yeah, Karen, you'll get the slides afterwards. So this reliance that we place on it, is it good? Is it bad? I mean, am I a Luddite? Should I be raging against the machine and banning calculators in exams and all of that type of thing? Or should we actually be accepting that when AI is used in a workplace environment, it does, depending on who's using it, increase the efficiency of some people, but also it can lead people to turn away from the platforms and the systems that are actually creating shared value for the enterprise. That cheeky mobile phone under your desk, or you're, logging into a private email address to actually use Gen AI to actually help you with that presentation because you don't want to use the enterprise system for that. It creates misalignment. Arguably, it de-skills the whole ecosystem. So what I mean by that is any knowledge graphs or any knowledge bases, should say, that you're using, any systems where all of this information has been shared and aggregated. If you've got it in your own personal ChatGPT account, or you're generating images that are random and not signed off by the organization that you're working for, are you part of the problem rather than the solution for it? It does create a diversion away from, if you have policies in place about the misuse of AI, or misuse of systems or company accounts for things, it breaks all of this apart, and it actually can make the organization more vulnerable. That's my view. I kind of share this view. I think that's exactly what happens. So what I would encourage everybody to be thinking about is, you do need to, I'll show you this at the end, you do need to be using all these tools, right? but don't do it behind your boss's back. If you're in kind of a reporting line, try and build a case for, can't we have an enterprise, can't we have a company account for this, can't we just do this, is there not a solution? I've been looking and I found something that means we won't need to be using all of that. We could, can we not speak to IT and introduce, can we not at least look at this so we can bring it under the hood? And also be looking at all of the enterprise platforms that you're currently using in your businesses as to whether or not they have any kind of AI already pre-built into them, because actually that can often be the easier business case, is actually when you're saying, well, look, there's a whole load of features we're not even using. All we've got to do is change our licenses and we can do it. I don't mind being a super user to try it out. So that's where we are on that. I'm going to move tack on, talk about two amazing things, digital twins. So I'm going to give you two different examples of digital twins. The first one is supermodels, and the other one is factories. So two polar opposites, both digital twins. So you'll get this. This is an article from BBC just a few weeks ago. And what it actually talks about is the use of one particular agency using AI supermodels in Vogue magazine. So what you're looking at here is these images here are actually, they're not real people. These are avatars that have been created by this agency, Serafin Valora. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. It was for an ad that featured a double page spread in it, in the August edition of it. And it was the thing that really frustrated a lot of people was that the information that said this was AI generated was so tiny that it was virtually impossible to see it. That there was no big reveal saying, now, when you generate images, many of the language models that are used for the purposes of multimodal generation of content, whether it's video or images, and indeed even text, they often put in hidden fingerprints that can be picked up by platforms. I'm going to show you a load of tools that will identify that soon. But with things like this, when it goes to print, all of that digital fingerprint of AI generated content is pretty much lost. It's only if it's published in a digital platform does it get picked up. So that was a big concern that people were saying, it's a bit cheeky. It feels a little bit disingenuous. Our whole industry is based on human beauty. And there you are banging out robots of pretty people, and it doesn't really feel fair. You're taking jobs away from real supermodels. And it's up to them to decide whether they want to get out of bed for £50,000 a shoot or not. And we shouldn't be replacing them with avatars. And I sort of understand that. I sort of understand it. This is the team behind it. Highlighted some really interesting stuff. To create one of those models, it can take up to a month, yeah, to do that. And these are highly skilled people who are doing it. There's only 5 people in the organisation, but it can take up to a month to create one. And they charge anywhere up to a low 6 figures for a client like Guess. Guess is the company who commissioned them to create the ad. I mean, it's not bad, is it? Yeah, just think about that. It can take up to a month and they can charge low 6 figures to the client for that. So actually, it's quite lucrative to be in that game. But it is arguably taking jobs away from people. So what's the response to it? Well, the response is straightforward. If you're a supermodel, we can create an avatar of you so that you can be in 2 places at once, and that we will act as your agent with the model that we've created of you, and you will be immortalized forever. No more getting old. No more worrying if you're allowed to go to that party because you might be looking tired at the shoot the next day. Forget it. We can actually capture with precision pores, facial hair, skin texture, poses, style. Literally nothing is missed. So in perpetuity, you can be a supermodel. And actually, there's a case to be said for that, because actually it's a little bit like footballers, isn't it? That they have a finite window of earning opportunity. And when I was thinking about just that then led me on to thinking about, well, hold on a minute. If you can create a avatar, a digital twin of a person like that, of a model, why couldn't footballers do the same thing, to take every single piece of physical information about their physique and their performance in every game they've ever played. And why couldn't all that be put into a language? It could be. I know it could. It probably. Well, in fact, I'm sure that's what the football games these days do. But if I was a footballer at the peak of my game, I'd definitely do that. I'd want a high performing avatar based on my performance at the peak of my career, and then I would want to license that to football game people who produce games. That's called Football Manager. Yeah, so Shakid, does Little Grey Laws here, the footballer from Scunthorpe FC, get royalties from the performance? And in any way, is it true data? Because actually, what I would want is I would want to own my own data. I want to own my persona. I want it to be realistic, and I want to sell licenses to it. So anyway, just a thought on that one. That was really just going down a chain of thought of what possible other digital twinning could you actually do? So let's go and have a look at one that's literally at the other end. And this one is very close to my heart. Factories. I love a factory. In my formative years, I was in the print and publishing industry and then went on to lots of different types of manufacturing. And the thing I loved was factory physics. So setting up a work environment, ensuring that it looked beautiful, it worked, you had an input, process, output, everybody had the right tools, the layout was perfect, there was optimal processing, minimal waste activities, everybody enjoyed being in that environment, all of that nerdy stuff. I loved it. I still love it. But do you know what? When I was creating new workspaces, there was a lot of guesswork. There was a lot of lived experience of where I'd implemented layouts of factories in previous companies that I could then lend into the process of developing a new factory for a different company altogether. Saying, well, that won't work. Flow won't work that way. You could do it this way. Maybe you don't need a line. You need cells. Maybe you need to break down things like all of that. That was my lived experience. If I could download all of that into Grey GPT and synthesize it, then I could sell that. But I'm probably too late because that's what Nvidia have done. Is that actually what they've done is they've created virtual environments using factory physics. So you can see these are systems that are designed for nerds like me who need to make factories. And it's taking the what I love about this is that it actually takes data from the virtual facility or the physical facility, the actual facility, and the all of the specifications from the equipment that you're trying to put in there in itself, and working out best optimization, utilization of resources, lighting, space, where the energy comes in, what is the best flow for this, and it virtualizes the whole thing. So you can see on this whole digital twin looks not only at the positions of equipment, but dwell time, journey time, positions of people. You can create virtual cameras. You can run simulations. What happens in this configuration if we have 5 people working there? What if we get rid of 5 people, put one robot in there? So you can work through all of these various simulations to get to a point where you've created the perfect flowing factory. And there's loads of really, if you're a nerd like me, loads of really good examples online of these systems being set up not only to present the software, but also to make the products they're putting into it. It becomes this recursive loop where they're designing the factories that make the robots that would go into factories of the future, all using systems that Intel have created. All right, I'm going to finish off just before we're going to take a short break, and I'm just going to finish off a little bit about the use of AI in government. I dragged myself away from Westminster for this session, and I've been petitioning the government for ethical use of artificial intelligence. But people have already got there before me. So if we look at this article that came from the Telegraph, this looks at how people, when they are being given options for care, how is that done? Well, they're going to introduce artificial intelligence to actually look at social care process. You can see this is a workflow of how they would do it. They look at manual care assessments. They use machine learning, AI, for anybody who's not aware of that. Then they look at the piloting the assessment. Once they've established that it actually works, then they can roll it out big time. And it's part of a much bigger end-to-end process of digitizing and AI enabling the whole healthcare system. And really, it's a fair point that what they're trying to do is help councils that don't have much money to be able to automate some of this so that people can get the right care that they need and that they're not that decision is not being delayed. This is a company that produced it. They are called ICS AI, and they are a founder member of Microsoft's Inner Circle partner program. So exemplars, you know, world leaders in artificial intelligence, UK company. I guess we should be pleased about that. They're based in Basingstoke on that. And you can see who they're working for. They're working for a lot of different trusts on this kind of thing. The same article by the guy, by the Telegraph, also talked about this, which was just as an aside, a little breakout box in the article. Councils that are switching to AI-run phone lines. There you go. Look, so these are, if you've ever been on one of those phone, and then so I press 2 and press 1 and press 3 and press that, and eventually you get through. Sometimes you actually get to speak to what you think is a person, but actually it's not. It's an AI bot, and eventually you get through to a person through a triage system. And the way for that is that it's easier to have lots of parallel instances of the triage happening, and some of those can be filtered off and never need to speak to a real person, which means that the people who really need to speak to a real person get to them quicker. So I understand the principle of that, and again, it's a way to do that, but it can be quite frustrating. And when you might have heard when you're on one of these calls and it said this call may be recorded for training purposes, right? That's not to train people. That's actually the whole recording is going to be used as part of a machine learning exercise to help develop the next iteration of that solution, which includes allowing a human operator when they're talking to people. Yeah, exactly. And I get what you're saying. So, will those people that do get through to speak to a human being, there are lots of companies that are managing these switchboards that have sentiment, real-time sentiment trackers that's generating the next point that needs to be raised in the direction to reduce anxiety, to improve the ultimate outcome and benefit of that conversation. So this stuff's happening in real time. And I guess, for Derby City Council, the fact that they can have a system that helps people get to speak or get the information they need, irrespective of the individual skill level of the team that they might have, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So what else is being used by government? Well, all right, how about this one? HMRC are on the gram. HMRC are now looking at your social media. Okay, so it was natural. Anybody who's been involved in cryptocurrency have known for the last year, if not that legislation was going to come in, and that they would be looking at ways in which they can compare your financial records and spending habits with what you put on the internet. I mean, it came as a crushing blow because I wanted to be a crypto bro. But my chances now of owning a Lambo without paying tax on my ill-gotten gains are now literally zero on that. But joking aside, I don't think this is a bad thing, to be honest. I'm quite happy that HMRC are finding ways in which the people who ought to be paying tax do pay tax. Contentious point of view, it might not be a view that you share. And I'm not a goody two shoes by any stretch of the imagination, but I personally feel that we all should be paying the right amount of tax, and people who show off things like that and encourage the misuse of ill-gotten gains, and there's an awful lot of that, and don't pay their way, really ought to be found out from that. And it comes back to that thing I was saying when I was talking to my business associates about I would love one system that just had my accounts package, my bank account, HMRC, Companies House, Government Gateway, all of that. I just want it all in one system, so it's all nice and transparent from their point of view. Because I'm always above board, because I just don't want any grief. What they are doing, what HMRC are doing right now, is they are putting out 1 million letters in what's being considered what people have described as a phishing exercise. So they've been literally sending 1 million letters out to people they think look a bit dodgy, inviting them to consider whether or not over the last few years they've paid the correct amount of tax. They're not being specific about how much is in question. They leave it as almost like a dotted line saying, I wonder. So what's happening is a whole load of crypto bros now are scrambling around trying to work out how they can make sure that they can calculate what they should have paid on that. Okay, gang, I think what we need to do is And it is 11 o'clock. Do you think we should just take a very quick 5 minute break?
I think that would be in order. I've just had a cup of coffee brought to me, but I know everybody's not as lucky as me. So yeah, if we can jump um, back here at 11:06, switch your cameras off, switch your microphones off. We don't want to hear anyone boiling the kettle.
Or crunching biscuits?
Yeah. Right. We'll see you shortly, Gray.
See you shortly.
I need an AI tool that creates more time, Dre.
Yep.
Just, I guess that's what they all do, don't they?
They should give you time back.
Yes. Yes, fear of a slop planet. Okay. Right, let's hope everyone's back near enough. Hopefully Annette's kettle has boiled and she's got her tea. Let's get going again.
Yeah, I mean, it might be an opportune moment while we're waiting for the kettle to definitely boil and people to come back up. Has anybody got any thoughts on what we've discussed? I know there's been a lot of comments in the chat. Anybody want to bring themselves off mute and offer a view on some of the content we've gone over in our first half before we start talking about slop?
Anybody?
There's a lot of people with their cameras turned off. I'm just skimming through. Which,
Annette raised a hand, so
hey, go for it, Annette.
Yes, hi. I mean, I have no doubt that there are there are advantages to using AI, but what concerns me is trying to separate the scaremongering from reality, especially
Yep.
where environmental impacts are concerned and
Yeah.
how it's going to impact the job market, which I think it will do. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
it's a fair point. I'm going to, and that later on in this second half, I'm going to do something called red pill, blue pill, and I'm going to give you two research tools or a research tool with two different links for allow you to explore both of those topics. And what I've tried to do is do it in a really balanced way and provide all of the information in a language model that will allow people to, in a very tight, controlled way, do their own exploration from reliable sources of information, because that's the real challenge. Is that there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of
yeah.
people who pump it for their own agenda,
Mhm.
and you know
Well,
sometimes.
no doubt, yeah, there's no doubt about that is happening. It's like, I think it was the same with the internet. So
Yeah.
there will be a lot of that, scaremongering, not rumors, etc.
Well, it's
Possibly.
money. There's the more we move into a world where everything is digital and everything is generative and anything can be
Mhm.
changed at any time, then there is bias and influence and there is power shifts, and that's where all the money sits. So because of that, there are big vested interests in certain things succeeding and other things not succeeding. Um, you know, I'll explain at the end of our session how I've gone from being a very analog person through to being a total digital person as a consequence of the evolution of industry and having to accept that. And I think we're at that inflection point again, Annette, where there are certain known knowns and unknowns that we're going to have to deal with in real time as it starts to play out. Simon, you've got your hand up?
Yeah. I've been really focusing on the AI for at least the last year seriously.
Yeah.
I'm now as a managing director of a small manufacturing and resale company, spending probably 50% of my time working with it. And of course, there's the low-hanging fruit where you want to draw up a contract because it's actually a pretty good lawyer for simple things, which is saving money with the lawyers. Well, I'm talking about a simple sale agreement, something like that. Something that you would basically take a template and apply it. That's
Yep.
right. And it's brilliant at writing emails now that it's dropped its old habit of having swallowed corporate American language and actually speaks British English properly. And all that's low-hanging fruit, and all the guys here use it and are encouraged to use it.
Sure.
But the really interesting stuff from my point of view, and the thing that's going to give the greatest gains to our productivity, is by providing better and faster customer service, and not by replacing the humans, but by enabling the humans. It's all like you were talking about earlier on. So it will draft a response automatically. for a fairly standard question, customized to the person who's asked it, usually by email. And then they will amend it or just say that's fine and send it off and increase their productivity. And I can see with the way that we're starting to use it now, I'm building our own AI interfaces, building our own GPTs, as is kind of parlance. That it will. I can't see why we would ever need to recruit anyone else in customer service, because the current customer service will be able to do so much more, more quickly. And the one final thing to say is the big projects. So some things I do is like the entire system that runs our business, from taking the orders to actually shipping it out the door, not physically packing. That's doing
ERP system,
but that whole system, which has been built up over the last 16 years.
And
you can give that to the AI and say, make that better, and it will come back with an absolute heap of garbage, right? It will be terrible. And you have to divide it with the current state of AI into tiny little chunks of tasks in the right order, which requires a lot of thought. You can't just give it big stuff to do and expect it to do it.
I think you're absolutely right, Simon. It's too early. It's too early for all of that. We're not at taking an existing legacy ERP system and automating the whole thing just simply by using one tool to do that.
Exactly right.
Yeah, what you're looking at is either the developers of the proprietary software bringing in programmers who actually can introduce AI into that system, or actually bringing in experts who can deconstruct the whole thing, review your process flows, identify the best tools to use, and build an entirely new system. But that's not cheap. That's not cheap. It's not easy.
But the AI can also help you deconstruct it. So you can actually do that sort of project. So I have been doing this project, and it does work. But gosh, it doesn't take like a couple of days. It takes weeks or even months to get.
And you've got to weigh all this stuff up. Does the effort yield any reward greater than if we carried on the way we are?
That's a good question. But my view is as the AI has improves, if you have your business ready to deal with it, is basically geared to AI. As the AI improves itself, so will the output from the things you've linked to.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, that's right. And people have often said this in the past. I've heard many people say it. AI is only going to be as rubbish as it is today. And what they mean by that is it's never going to be as bad again. It's just going to keep getting better.
Exactly.
So, we're just going to play the waiting game. Just think about how far we've come. The people on this call, I would say, hazard a guess to say 80%, 90% of the people on this call didn't know AI existed 5 years ago.
Sure.
Simple as that. Just didn't. It's just apparently it hasn't. It's been around since the 50s. It's come out of nowhere. So just imagine what's been achieved in the last 5 years from an enterprise point of view and what could be achieved in the next period of time. But I do need to talk about slop. I'm sorry, but I need to talk about AI slop. So AI slop is that sense of feeling you get when you look at something and you think, that looks fake. You must have seen it. Loads of you had that experience of looking at my content this morning saying, you probably didn't realize, that looks a bit wonky. That's just like, that's a bit off. That kind of uncanny tingling you get of like, that looks fake as. And it's not just images and video, it's also copy, it's content. And I'm going to show you some examples of it, and I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to either create your own slop or identify if something is slop. All right. So for those of you nerds that might be interested, I'm going to very quickly show you how I created this image. I use a tool called LM Arena, which is a tool that plays off image generation, code generation, text generation tools against each other anonymously. You give it an instruction for code, for copy, for images, for whatever. It produces two. You choose which one you want, and then after you've chose it, it tells you which one it is. So, okay, so that was by Google Veo. Oh, that one was by Nano Banana. Oh, that one was by Claude. And what that actually does is it creates this aggregated leaderboard, and I'm going to show you some of the results from that leaderboard shortly. But anyway, this is the original image. This is Public Enemy, which are a rap band from the 90s, showing my youth here. A band I used to love, and in particular, I really like this album. So I thought, yeah, I want to create a, yeah, Fear of a Slot Planet. I'm going to use their album cover, put it into LM Arena, give it a prompt, and after a while, it generated a whole load of different things. And finally, I got one, Nano Banana, this one, that actually managed to get all of the elements in there. Got the words, got the line, got the circles, got the wording right. You can see all these other ones are variations on it. And Nano Banana, I will talk about in a bit, is actually at that time, didn't know what it was. I did, but the majority of people didn't know what Nano Banana was, but they do now. But I also try to, as well as using it in LM Arena, there's another tool that I like to use, which is Flux Playground. And you see there's links here. You'll be able to go and try. You can try Flux Playground for free. It's very good. Well, I say it's very good. It wasn't in this particular case. It couldn't get it right. But it's got other little interesting features. How you can take an existing image and change it, expand it, remove things, add things. So it's quite a good tool for that. But when it comes to trying to spot AI generated content, this is a tool called Notebook LM. Anybody heard of Notebook LM? Notebook LM, hands up. Okay, well done, Colin. So we got one. Oh, Ant's got his hand up. So if you, those people I can see on screen, number one, who've got your cameras turned on, thank you for raising your hand on that. Shaki, thank you for raising your hand on that. So Notebook LM is a free tool by Google, and it's my go-to tool right now. And I'm going to give you some links so that you can try it for yourself, all right, shortly. But why I like Notebook LM is that I've done a screenshot of this, right? So this is the interface. On the left-hand side here are all the different sources of information that I've put into this. So what you're creating here, it uses Google Gemini as the source language model, but what you're actually creating is you're creating a trained model that only uses sources of information in a retrieval, like the retrieval process, based on what you've put into it. So it doesn't go off and hallucinate. It doesn't go off and find crazy stuff on the dark web. It literally only will find information that you've put in there. So think about, you've got 50 PDFs, white papers, theses on a given scientific topic. You've got a couple of really interesting websites. You've got your own documents. You've got some really interesting YouTube scientists, blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. You've got Google Docs, you've got markdown files, you've got text files, all of that on a topic. You can load it into Notebook LM and create your own mini language model. That's what this does. And you can see it's got lots of tick boxes all the way down the side. You can turn them on and off. So if you want to do a synthesized version of it, put in 100. In fact, actually, on this particular one, the Spot AI generated text, I've only got 18 sources in there. But it might be, I've got another one that I'm going to show you the link to, where I've got 290 sources of information about AI ethics. And you can turn things off saying, I don't want, in this generative experience, I don't want it to refer to that, that, or that. So you can untick things and you can compare and contrast what it actually says based on the content you put in there. So anyway, that's our source. In the middle bit, this is our generative bit where you can literally ask it anything, all right? And it won't hallucinate. It will only base itself on the sources of material. And then over on the left side, you've got Studio, where you can create things like podcasts, video presentations, FAQs, timelines. But my favorite tool in amongst all of this is this, which is a mind map. I know it sounds mad, basic as, but I'm a visual thinker. My background is definitely in art and print and things like that. And, you know, as I mentioned before, when I was working in factories, I wanted to make them beautiful. So the aesthetic imperative is important to me. So when it comes down to trying to assimilate tons and tons of dense information, I actually find a mind map really easy. So what Notebook LM will actually do is, based on all of your content, it will create an interactive mind map to allow you to go and explore it. And if you tap on any of these words at any point, that automatically generates a query that will then do a deep dive just on that little bit. So it's absolutely fascinating. So what we've done here, so we've got all of the copy. You can see what it's broken it down into: the characteristics of text, the detection methods, the countermeasures, and the impact. And you can see I went for this one, the text detection methods, so the tools, the way in which you, a human being, could actually spot it. as well as the technical approach and things like that. So you can say, look, this is what it's saying. You're looking for AI characteristics, the commonality or unusualness of words, because humans actually are quite sporadic in how they write. And in particular, burstiness. So, and I'm going to show you an example in a sec of me doing a comparison between my burstiness and an AI rewrite of copy and the impact of that. Repetition, style, lack of personality, all these kind of things. These are tells in AI slop, and these are tells that are really they're visible once you start to see it. And I've got a friend who's a film director, and I remember years ago we had a conversation about what changed for him in his love of film, because as soon as he became technically involved in directing films, because everything became a deconstruction of an idea and then a methodical process of visualizing it and turn it into the finished product, he then struggled to appreciate films made by others in exactly the same way that he did before, because suddenly he found himself watching a film and going, oh, that's an interesting shot, I wonder why I did, oh, that's a nice dolly shot. So he's having these, it changed everything in the way that he looked at films. This will do the same thing for you. Once you've seen these tells using a tool like this, you're going to find that it's going to be difficult for you not to spot these things. All right. And here's another one. So this other mind map here looks at the detection tools, looks at things like, anybody used any of these? I've used GPT-0 and I haven't used Turnitin, but I've heard that has varying degrees of success. I've definitely used Quillbot. I've actually used Quillbot to help me write, because I get quite a lot of anxiety writing lots of words. So if I've got lots of content that I need to do, if I'm sending it to a person, like a long email, a detailed something, I'll actually use Quillbot to help me with it. Not for the AI detection, but just generally helping with my syntax and grammar, and just taking the anxiety away from copywriting. But what I'm showing you here is just a fantastic little tool. All right, so, but let me show you now. Where's my mouse gone? Can't find my mouse. There we go. Right, okay. So human versus the bot. So this is a post I did about this workshop. Okay. And what I was trying to do here was show, you remember I was talking about burstiness earlier as one of the tells, or lack of a tell. Burstiness is a different lengths of sentences. So my next workshop at Enterprise Oxfordshire will be roller coaster ride into ethical use of AI, Frontier Labs. It's a very long sentence. This is so grey laws. Literally, look at all them commas. Look at all of that. No emojis, no M dashes, no delving deep. It lasts 2 hours. Ding, ding, ding. This is burstiness. Long sentences, short sentences, too many commas. All of that stuff that humans actually do when they're quite excited. AI doesn't give you that unless you actually give it as an example and say, this is my style, create more content like that. But what I wanted to do was, that's the post that I put out onto LinkedIn. And then just for fun, I thought, actually, for the purpose of this workshop, let's see what happens if I get AI involved in writing the copy for it. So I went to a tool called Perplexity. So Perplexity is it's a language model, but it's more a research tool. Okay, so it's built from the ground up to basically just do research, and in particular it's going out to the World Wide Web. So it's very much, as lots of language models now that you would access through generative interfaces, like Anthropic and Claude and so on and so forth. They can access the internet. This one, Perplexity, for me, has been built from the ground up that way. So it's my personal favorite of all of the tools. Don't use ChatGPT at all. Just don't. So I went into Perplexity, right? And what I did is actually I did a screenshot of this whole thing and pasted it into Perplexity along with this prompt. I want to create an example of AI slop based on some human copy I wrote for an upcoming workshop. Include cliches, M dashes, emojis, overuse of triplets, flowery words, reversal structure, overuse of triplets, etc. This needs to be fairly short, not War and Peace, as it's for a social media post. So that's the prompt I gave it, along with some stuff about A/B testing. I put the copy in there, put a screenshot of the post in there. And when you get these slides, you can actually see the perplexity, like the whole journey I went on to actually create this, just for your own interest. So this is what it actually gave me back afterwards. That. So here you are. right? This is the world you are now in, all right? You are my friend, the film director, suddenly looking at something, wishing you'd never seen it because now you can't not see it. That. It's not that. It's not that. It's this. So what are we looking at here? Anybody want to put something in the chat? Why, what are the tells in there that this is AI generated? Anybody want to bring themselves off mute? I'm not trying to embarrass anybody here, by the way, but it's just more, can you spot this? This,
Icons are a big giveaway straight away.
yeah, they are, aren't they? Just like overuse of those emoji icons, definitely. Anybody else? What else have we got? M dashes. Tamsin, do you want to explain M dashes? If you're okay to talk, you don't have to.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine. So M dashes are those like super long dashes. Yes, that one of those. But
Yeah, one of
I
these.
think I'll be honest, I don't even know how to get one of those up on a keyboard. So I think if I
Not
see
easy.
those, that's a that's a real
Not
flag that it's
easy.
not been written by a
It takes
person.
it takes 3 keys to create an M dash. Nobody uses 3 keys for one character. Anybody got any other thoughts? Too many exclamation marks, you also said. So well, there are exclamation marks in there because the AI gets excited. Everything's amazing. So I feel a bit like an AI sometimes. I'm sure you're thinking I'm an AI bot, the way I get so excited about simple things like this. But it amps things up a little bit too much. Overuse of the rule of three. Tim, boom. Tim, if you're okay, do you want to bring yourself off mute and just tell us a little bit about what, the rule of three?
We started as a Greek oratory expression. We've all heard it. Tony Blair with education, education, education. I came, I saw, I conquered. It's that sort of thing. And you've got it here with the clock is ticking, seats are vanishing, and history is waiting to be made, as one example. Secure your spot, bring your friends, and let make AI dreams come true. It's rules of three just spliced together rather than for effect when you want to stress something, as Tony Blair did in education, education, education.
Yeah. And there's one up here at the right. Thank you for that, Tim. Dive, discover, dominate with emojis and an M dash. Literally, that whole set. I'm exhausted just looking at it. Nicola, 3-line slogan in action. Are you there, Nicola? I
Yeah,
can't see.
sorry, I was just picking up on what the
Yeah.
previous chap said about the fact that you've got these three blocks of text sort of thing going on. It's very much 3-line slogan in line with how we find government communication comes down these days. Keep calm, carry on, and wash your hands kind of thing. It's that
All of
same
that.
kind of approach to providing you with a very simplistic, easy idea to hop on board with. So I was just picking up on what the previous chap said.
Yeah, no, that's great. On a previous workshop, Nicola, I did this whole section on the Nudge Unit, which is an agency that was commissioned by the UK government during COVID and then taken globally to encourage people to go down a certain thought process. And they were one of the first organisations to use AI and to use that rule of three for that thing. Because remember, there were always 3 things. There was like 3 words that I have on the front of the pot. I can't think of any of them. Thank goodness, my brain is now unwashed. But for a while, I was brainwashed by this triplet effect.
It was certainly used a lot in the pandemic as a simple way to communicate information. So, hands, face, space, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing with the structure of syntax. In order to be able to explain something very, very simply to people who aren't necessarily I don't want to say intelligent enough, that's not the word I'm using, but it's where you haven't got the brain space to fully analyze an idea, have a 3-line slogan, and that gets it across.
Yeah. In this uncontrolled experiment where I then took that post and put it on to the same, onto my LinkedIn feed, same as the previous one. I actually had 3 times the impressions for the human copy than I did, and they were about 7 hours apart, something like that, and that was last week. Not big impressions I might have had because I am not consistent with LinkedIn. But anyway, in that uncontrolled experiment, the human copy fared better than the AI generated one. And as I say, I'm so sorry. You will now not be able to not see this. You will spot it. I guarantee if you do one thing after this session, just go onto LinkedIn, go onto your feed, just look at some of this stuff. You are going to see a lot of it from now on. I then just did this feedback loop with this particular post. I actually I put this onto LinkedIn, generated the image as well, put it onto LinkedIn. Then I screenshotted this whole thing and I put it into Perplexity again, yeah, and said, right, I want you to deconstruct it. So here's my prompt. Now break this down in detail, explaining which AI slop elements feature in it. Put this into a table, working sequentially through the copy from start to finish in such a way that I can illustrate to the people the most common AI slop tells as featured in this copy. Yay! For all you nerds out there, here's the detail of it. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on that so you can see. So, yeah. Unlock the magic of AI. Dive, discover, dominate. Emojis, triplet, cliche, M dash. Boom, all the way down. So I hope I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's just I find this whole thing fascinating from that. And what you can actually do is do it the other way as well, is take some take a, let's say you ask ChatGPT to create some copy for, for something, and it produce a lot of slop like this. You can actually go in and say, now remove all the elements of AI slop from this and rewrite it. And here's an example of the style I want you to do it in, if you haven't already given it as the initial prompt. But lazy people publish stuff that looks like this on this hand side. They didn't bother to check this stuff and they just let it go through. But it does work, unfortunately. It does work. And this is Greylaw speaking here. This is not the voice of Enterprise Oxfordshire business. All right. So that's just my humble opinion. Anyway, whilst I was on LinkedIn, I stumbled across this, which is a post by a chap called Ben Martin. I don't know if Ben's on the call. Ben, I'm not singling you out at all for slop, because in actual fact, what you've written there is not slop. I checked. It's not slop. It's written by a human being. You can see it's got all of the lack of tells from it. But what he was actually talking about was this, which was the use of Gen AI to create images on packaging. So that isn't actually chow mein. That isn't what's inside it. It's an AI generated image of what's in there. And what he was doing is just like he was opening up the debate on, how do we feel about AI replicas? That, to what extent should AI be involved in packaging at all? Are we happy that we would use generative images to represent something that we're about to buy and consume? I don't know. I mean, what do you feel about that? Does it bother you that that doesn't really exist? And it's a leading question, right? Because I've got a friend who used to work for Tesco in their creative division, producing lots of content, online content. So think about all of the printed assets, all of the online assets, stuff that that would be broadcast as well as go to print and things like that. And he used to tell me stories about how they would spend hours and hours retouching video content, retouching images, and this predated AI. This was basically black belts in Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, trying to do the best they can to recover content and dress it up and make it look sassier and better, the kind of like human version of generative AI. So how do we feel about that? I don't know. We each have our own view, but then I wanted to know, yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's right. What's the difference? What's the difference between this and McDonald's? Yeah, they stack all of fresh veg at the front and things like that. I mean, with what the suggestion is, this is that it's not even real food. It's literally the whole thing's been generated. So it's not even that they've pushed the lettuce and the tomato and the onion to the front and had it overhanging to imply that it's stacked with more than it really is. And it's not down to clever lighting and photo retouching. It's just like literally the whole thing's been just developed from scratch. But anyway, I went down this rabbit hole then of packaging, because I've got clients actually here in the packaging industry. So I was interested to know, is there any decent AI tools out there? It seems like the big AI tool for packaging is one called Packify.ai, where in actual fact you can create lots of content based on your brand. So of course I created my own brand, Slop Me Not. That's my brand. And I went through the exercise of just creating, just out of suspending disbelief, going through the journey. I mean, it's not cheap. I thought I'd show you that right up front. $9.90, or is it $99? No, it's $9.90 a month. So yeah, that's okay. Not bad. $30 basically for cash if you want the business version of it. So that's okay. If this is your industry, you probably know about this anyway. I didn't, but I was very impressed. Not only could it take a brand and start, kind of visualizing it, and it did the interface was brilliant on this. It really was. You choose your vessels, put all the dimensions in, all the specifications to actually create something. And then once you've done that, this is the beauty of it, and this is the print nerd in me. It generated all of the die cutting information that you would need for packaging. Look at this. It gave you all the layout of the packaging box. It gave you the visualization, but it gave you the cutter guides for it as well, so that you could not only get the print files to get the box printed, but also you got the finishing lines that you would then need to actually have this thing cut, creased, and made up, all in one little simple AI tool. I think that's absolutely genius. And there were others as well. There was another one that seemed to be quite popular when I went into Reddit looking for it, and that's Sourceful, but I don't need to do that. Didn't need to show you that one. It works in exactly the same way. So we generate a whole load of images, we put it onto our packaging, but who owns it? Who actually owns the asset? This is a brilliant blog written by a legal person, and it talks about the implications of AI. Who actually owns this? And I know somebody had put in the chat that they wanted to know who owns IP when it comes to images. Well, this gives you all of that information. I'm scrolling through it quite quickly, but it is really quite useful. So I'm putting that, hopefully that link will work. I'm putting that in the chat, but it's a great little resource for you exploring that. The reality is, in almost every case, you do not have exclusive rights to those images unless you are paying an awful lot of money to those companies. And you have this whole ethical dilemma of where did the language model that they're using to generate those images, how was that trained? Was that trained on legitimate artwork, like ethically sourced original artwork, or not? That's the question what one would ask themselves. People like Adobe with their Firefly have trained their language models on only legitimate pieces of artwork and imagery that they've paid for and had the approval from the artist on. They say that, and I've got no doubt that that's not the case for fine-tuning purposes. However, the big dark secret for all of these frontier labs is that a lion's share of their base language models is built on copyrighted material, and it's a guilty secret that nobody wants to talk about. Brilliant. Yeah, and do please share some links. So my final bit I want to talk about is the sleeping giant, which is Google. Lots of people don't realize, and hadn't realized until recently, that Google were even in the AI space. Well, they are the giant that's waking up, basically, for us mere mortals. They've always been there. I've always believed in the whole time that I've been involved in AI that it was just a matter of time before they rubbed their eyes and just got up and did it. So what I'm going to show you now is LM Arena. So LM Arena, as I mentioned earlier, is the way that you play off models against each other and agnostically vote on it, and it creates rankings, fair and reasonable rankings. And what I wanted to show you first was how I actually created this image, and it's really fairly straightforward. This is the prompt that I put in, a 60s surf art style image, sleeping giant, ding, 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 hit return, and then it offered me it did two side-by-sides. In this particular example, it was Imagen, which predated the very latest Google image model. But you can see these pretty good. You don't get to see which one it is until you voted and said, I prefer this one. And then it actually reveals it to you. But based on preference of people like me, and this is free, you can use this tool, by the way, for generating a lot of different stuff. But itchy trigger finger warning here. Please don't just generate tons of stuff for the sake of it. Because everything that you generate consumes something. It consumes energy, it consumes water, it just consumes resources of one kind or another, and probably will produce a little bit of pollution. So that's me wagging my finger a little bit. But have a look at these. These are the rankings. So in that LM Arena, you can see the rankings on it. So this is for text. This is from this morning, by the way. So these are rankings as of this morning. Gemini for text, Gemini in first place. For web dev, Gemini in fourth place. For vision, Gemini in first place. Text to image, Gemini in first place. If we look at image editing, so that is not generating an image, but editing an image after you've generated it, Gemini in first place. When it comes to search, interesting. It's actually in fourth place. Oof. Sorry, Google. When it comes to text to video, so generating video, you can see they're in the top 4 spaces, and I've got on one further ranking when it's like taking an image and turning that into a video, and in first and second place, and further down the rankings. They are literally knocking it out of the park right now. And they are a massive machine that has a lot of money being pumped into it, a lot more money than us people have. And also for the other frontier labs who don't have existing revenue streams to pump into it. It's basically Meta have a massive revenue stream that they can pump into it. X does to a lesser extent, but Google by far has the biggest revenue generating opportunity to pump into it. The likes of OpenAI, who arguably are one of the frontier labs, is that they're just leveraging investment and they're hemorrhaging money at a alarming rate to try and stay relevant. So here are some interesting little Google tools that are not for babies. So when I've been exploring the use of artificial intelligence, I've always gone to Google Labs for years, because this is where you're going to find out all of the cool stuff. It's where Notebook LM was. It's where Nano Banana was. It's where Google VO was. Literally, they experiment with all of these, and you can access them for free basically and just try them out. Some of them don't work and they just abandon them. Others turn into fully fledged products. So here's one, Google Vids. So this is it generates videos basically. Show you 2 examples, VO3 and templates. You can see there's lots of different ones you can do on there, but I'm just going to show you these 2. So the first one is templates. So it's basically you can upload a document and turn it into a video like this. You've got an idea, just give it a load of text and it will just create a presentation for you in whatever format you want for it, and then add music to it. It's free. There are loads of really cool tools that will do this anyway, but this is for free, so give it a go. There's no harm in trying it. And then the next one is VO3. So this is my 60s style prompt that I use for generating an image, and I put this is in Google Vids. This is VO3, their very latest video generation model. Quite liked it, but it spelled Google wrong. It spelt it goggle. It's like, really? Come on, Google. This is your tool, this is your brand, and you can't even spell your own name. So then I went in and okay. So I changed the prompt and said, can you just check the spelling of Google? And it did check the spelling, but it right this out. But it completely changed the prompt. We got it right. And then I just thought, just for a little bit of fun, what I would do is just add a little bit of humor into it. So I just added just a little extra stuff in it, and just make it look little Lilliput like. I have to be careful with all of this because I've got to practice what I preach. That was inexpensive for me, but from an environmental point of view, relatively expensive. Generate an image, whether it's 3 seconds, 7 seconds, 50 minutes, whatever it is, it uses a lot of compute, and which actually means somebody's paying for that. Whether it's a foundation model developer who's trying to prove the case for this to get investment, whether it's you through a subscription model, or whether it's the environment, somebody's paying for it. So this is Google Gemini, and this isn't in labs, but this is just their standard thing that you can access, like ChatGPT and like Perplexity, and you can do various things with it. You do the usual stuff, deep research, all of that sort of stuff, and in particular, you can create videos and you can create images, and you can also use it for that VO thing that I just showed you, and it does it quite interesting in a slightly different way. So in it, I said, right, I want to do a video, so you can see I'll select a video, put exactly the same prompt in there, okay, and I'm using the very, very latest model that you can see up there, and that's my prompt. And then it's just like, I had to wait ages. It took ages to do it, but then eventually it got it going.
Oh, what in the world is going on here?
Now, one of the advantages of using VO actually natively in Gemini is actually you can add dialogue to it. So you can't do that in the in the in the labs version of it, but you can do in here. And although that's a whimsical example, it's actually pretty good. I'm sure the lip sync didn't work actually on it when I'm streaming over Zoom. Enter stage left Nano Banana, which is something that I've been looking at over the last 10 days. So Nano Banana is the very latest image generation tool by Google. It's actually called Google Gemini 2.5 Flash Image. And so many people have said you should have kept it Nano Banana, mate. Nano Banana is so much a better name for it. That was their code name while they were trying it in LM Arena. So I gave it a whole load of stuff. So it's like, right, there's a prompt. And it went, yep, there you go. Is that the image you want? So yes, it is. When I downloaded it, it's a 9 meg file. So anybody who's into design or print, you will know why I'm just highlighting 9 meg right now. No image generation tools produces 9 meg files. It's really, really high resolution. It's brilliant. Really, really good. And it's free. It's free right now for that. But again, don't get itchy trigger fingers and generate too much stuff. The other thing that it has, an advantage over the majority of its equivalents, is character consistency. So after I generated that image, I then just put this really simple prompt in, hand outstretched, in its palm is a red pill. Look at the character consistency. So what we mean by that is if you ask a language model that generates images to change something, it doesn't just change the bit you wanted. It, for some reason, it goes, yeah, I didn't want to produce it exactly the same, so I've changed loads of stuff in it. Character consistency means that you can generate lots of things similar with minor changes to it, and you can see it's literally exactly the same. The resolution's the same. I've done this as a screenshot, so if that looks more blurred than that, it's only because this is the original 9 meg file and that's just a screenshot of it. But look, it's literally added that in there. Everything else, it's like spot the difference. There is no difference. So I'm going to finish off just talking about a little bit of red pill versus blue pill research. This is an image that I've generated, and I'm going to show you how I created that in LM Arena. That's my prompt, and it gave me two. When I put that prompt in there, ran them against each other, it gave me two variations. I chose this one. So you can say, is left better? Is it a tie? Are they both rubbish? Is right better? I went, yeah, right's better. And he went, there you go, it's Nano Banana. Nano Banana is that tool I've just been showing you by Gemini. Okay, so the reason why I'm so impressed by Nano Banana is in my prompt, I said do it in the style of Rick Griffin. So I love surf art, and Rick Griffin is like the man for surf art back in the day. This is his style. This is, just some stuff that I found on Google. I didn't put any of this into the prompt. Just by simply saying Rick Griffin, it knew exactly what I was trying to do. And you can see actually when you compare the image, when you look at this, it's actually taken me, dropped, it's got my suit in there, and it's got the red pill, blue pill, and it's got all these elements that are definitely, I know Rick Griffin's work, he's definitely got all of that stuff in there. All of it's in there. So, red pill versus blue pill. These are my two notebook LM things that I want to share with you. I'm going to put these into the chat right now for you. Just bear with us 2 secs because I want you to try these out. Not necessarily now, but if you tap on these now, then you can take, after the session is finished, you can do your own little experiment going down the rabbit hole. If you choose a red pill, you're going to be looking at the ethics of artificial intelligence, how these foundation models and enterprise organizations use your data, how models are used at a national level, where sovereign AI sits in amongst all of that world. It's a murky one. 280 sources of information in there. If, however, you just want to stay in a safe environment, maybe you're going to choose the blue pill. And this is all government research and publications and big consultancy research on the use of artificial intelligence on the future of work. Okay, so it's your call which one you choose. But have a bit of fun with it. And once you've tried these out, compare and contrast, what you could do, choose a question and ask both of these separate notebooks that same question. And based on the fact that the red pill gives you warts and all. The blue pill gives you the veneer. See how the answers differ to one another, like the response that you get out of it. Okay. And that brings me on to another notebook that I've got for you, which is all about SEO, AEO, and GEO, which is, we all know about search engine optimization. Lots of web developers have banged on about that for a long time to all of us, about the importance of getting that right. But of course, the way that we're moving from putting a search question into something like Google, and it gives you a whole load of options for you to continue to look, click, find the answer. Well, with AEO and GEO, what's happening now is it's actually trying to find the answer for you. And what that means is it's not giving you, you will find in the searches that it will show you all of the source material, but it's actually trying to present the answer back to you. So what you need to do is ensure that your website is providing the answer to the question that's likely to be asked. So long form rather than short form content. Lots of FAQs, lots of put the too long didn't read at the start, not the end, because the bot is more likely, if it picks it up in the first paragraph, there's lots of stuff that you can do that. So I'm going to put that, I will put that link into the chat at the end of this section. But have an explore with that one. I sent that over to my web developer and I said, mate, can you just have a look at this and tell me what I need to do to my website? Because I find, and he came back to me and said, that's really, really interesting, all of them sources that you've put into there. So there's 42 different sources of information about that's in that notebook. I'll send you the link, give it to your web developer, let them have a look at it, and then they can make those recommendations to you about what you need to do to change your website. So I found out the other week that I've been on the earth for 20,000 days. Right, you can do this really easily. Use ChatGPT, give it your date of birth, and say, how many days have I been alive? I was born on this date, and it'll say, oh, you've been alive 21,872 days. Or you can say, give me the exact date when I will be 25,000 days old. Things like that. So anyway, I just did that. My daughter did it. And she said, oh, Dad, you should find out when you're obviously older than 15,000 days, but find out when you're going to be 20,000 days. And I timed it perfectly. It was a week and a half after she mentioned it to that I was 20,000 days old. And I did a bit of a reflective piece on what have I learned in my first 20,000 days on Earth. So in the early days, I was an artist. And I wanted to be a graphic designer using airbrushes and pen and inks and the old craft of design. And then somebody showed me a computer, and they showed me how they were using freehand and Photoshop to manipulate images. And I thought, you know what? I'm never going to be a graphic designer because I can't use computers and I'm not going to need people like me. So what did I do? Well, I bought a computer and learned how to use it. That was my answer to that one. Then I became a master printer. So I didn't go into graphic design. I carried on being an artist as a hobbyist. I became a really competent lithographic printer, but then PDFs and emails started to come into it. Digital presses arrived. It displaced loads of people in my industry that I was in. I moved into large format digital prints to think about building wraps. Then digital signage came in and did away with big building wraps. It's just like, you are literally chasing me out the industry. But I was really impressed actually with what I saw in digital signage. And actually then I thought, I'm just going to teach myself how to create interactive graphics. I'll just do that. I've already got the computer, so I'll just learn that. And I did that. And then in the tenses, I then moved into operational and then creative imagineering for retail technologies. So think about interactive technologies, gesture and virtual reality, and creating retail theatre basically. The only problem with it is that we were majoring on Google Glass and using generative QR codes to trigger events on digital signage. But everybody thought, Google Glass is a bit creepy, that whole VR thing. I was too early for it. I was way too early for it. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to stuff it. I'm going to go to uni. I'm just going to finally do a degree. I'm going to find out where I'm making all these mistakes. I'm going to get out of this perpetual trap of being chased away by technology. And where am I now? I'm still in that same place after all of that time because AI's here now and it's stealing my lunch. So what am I going to do 20,001 days in and beyond? So I created Grey GPT. This is how my cup for staying relevant for at least the next 5,000 days. So the first one is I'm going to remain a generalist. So I'm going to have that broad set of skills. That's why I learn. That's why I pour my heart and soul into these types of workshops, because actually, the broader my understanding of all of these different tools, packaging artwork, I don't need to do that. Why did I go down that rabbit hole? Because I'm a generalist. Why have I gone down research about the environmental aspects of AI? Because I'm a generalist. Spread yourself wide because you just never know when some of this stuff is going to be useful. Then get involved in training, do stuff. As well as that MBA that I did years ago, I've done loads of courses on Coursera. Do it, keep learning the tools, get trained. And also the final bit, the T of GPT in there is just stay evolving, stay hungry, stay agile. Just don't ever stand still because there's always little idiots like me who are just dancing around you who will steal a march on you. So don't be that person that gets out competed by grey GPT. You can do some of this stuff yourself. All you've got to do is have a broad understanding of the industry, stay current with all of this stuff, learn in detail what you can that you feel is relevant to it, but continually be willing to adapt and change. There was this fantastic report from Thomson Reuters about future professions. Have a look at this. How professions have been learning about the latest in AI. This looks at how you, as a professional, will use AI or absorb the content through osmosis. Read written material, such as reports. Use the new features in software that's already available. Attend in-person training. This is not quite in-person training, but you've been involved in something where you've had a bit of a deep dive on this. This is what Thomson Reuters is encouraging everybody to do. You can do this. If you think that this is too much, too late, it's not. It's not. Go to something like Coursera, which I highly recommend. Coursera is a fantastic platform. There are other training platforms, but Coursera is an absolutely fab training platform for you to go and get up to speed on all of the latest AI tools. And if you really want to delve further deeper, this next month, we're going to be running the Eco Business Centre in Bicester, a face-to-face AI workshop. And we've got two fabulous speakers, Cecile Hemery and Steve Nichols, two leaders in AI. They're lovely people. They're very knowledgeable. You'd be welcome to attend that workshop. However, just bear in mind, the Eco Business Centre in Bicester is beautiful, but parking's a nightmare. So arrive early, do what you can do to experience networking and artificial intelligence and share your thoughts in a real space about what we're doing. My final thing that I want to do is show you my website, which has had a little widget working on it for quite some time. So this is something called ElfSite, which is a no-code way in which when people generate a Google Business Review for me, it auto-publishes it straight onto my website. It's free. You can use it. And I've just put a link into the chat so that if you want to leave me a Google Business Review based on what we've gone through this morning, please click on that link. It helps my algorithm. It's one of the most powerful pieces of social validation that will help my AEO and GEO rankings. And I will be very, very grateful for it. And just look up ElfSite. See if something like that works for you. It's been an absolute blast. It's bang on 12 o'clock and I've left no time for questions. So my sincere apologies on that, but I'm willing to stay on. Anybody that wants to stay and chat, that's what I'm here for. And do please, if you can leave me a review, I'll be very, very grateful. Ant, back to you.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much, Gray. I've taken loads and loads of notes as usual, loads of high value, no matter where you are in your AI journey. Hopefully there was something in there for you. I'm always a little bit terrified by how far you managed to take it, Gray, but I'm also inspired to start and stay on the journey, as you've said, keeping ourselves, maintaining that skills and keep evolving. So in the chat, there are lots of links. As Gray mentioned at the start, you can save the chat if you want. So if you look at the chat, there's 3 dots. So if you hover on that, you can then save the chat. We really do encourage you to give Gray a review. Gray is always extremely kind and generous in his knowledge that he shares. But also in there, don't forget, I've shared some links about feedback. So the official feedback we need for sending to the government to say that everybody thinks what we're doing is brilliant. Please keep helping us to deliver this for free. Questions for Gray. There is a question about sharing about the content. As Gray mentioned, he will share the video. So Enterprise Oxfordshire doesn't share recordings of its stuff, but we do allow Gray to share this on his own YouTube, given how fast this is going, etc., etc. So search out Gray, like his channel, and that's where you'll find the content. We will share the slides. We will share the feedback link again. We will keep encouraging you to join lots of other new business support offers that we've got, and there's been lots of them shared in the chat. So enlightening is one word there, Gray. That'd be a nice bit of feedback.
That's very, very kind. Thank you so much. I've just put in the link. If you scroll up a little bit, there is a link to the Notebook LM about SEO, GEO, AEO. So that's now in there. The link's in the slides, but nonetheless, if you wanted to have a look at that now, just scroll up to the last comment I've made, initials GL, tap on that Notebook LM link, and that'll take you to the SEO one.
Yeah. And Gray does make me feel a little bit nervous, because you might have spotted sometimes I have some AI generated content on LinkedIn. Interestingly, there was a video that I put out last week about the NHS that's currently been shared, reposted over 100 times.
That's amazing.
It's an AI video. It is loved and hated in equal if you read through the comments. One thing, it's not very diverse in the video, but it's connected with people globally from the health sector. And I'm now getting people sending me connection requests from all sorts of different health professionals around the world. So sometimes a bit of AI slop used appropriately is really good. So anything else in the chat we need to pick up? If not, thank you very much, Gray. Please do save the chat, save those links. I will save the chat anyway, and we'll circulate it. But yeah, do everything you can to stay up to date on this AI curve. We'll do everything we can to help you. There'll be a specific AI session coming up in November for businesses based in West Oxfordshire and Cherwell. And Gray and I will be having a discussion and sharing of calendars to work out when we'll be doing a next fully open one for everyone. So, thanks very much, everyone. Have a great week.
You're all legends. And anybody want to ask anything else, stay on. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Otherwise, if I don't see you here, I might see you in Bicester.
I shall stop